What down, family? It's your boy SNTV, back at y'all with another Chiraq Street Legend Squad edition, and this episode is going to be about none other than CRANKTOWN, aka the Young Crank family.
Live and direct from CRANKTOWN, Chicago, 63rd and Kimbark.
Man, 6 Deuce, man, 6 Trey, man, Surge Trey, Surge City, y'all know what it is, man.
The boy, the great one.
Great
the
one,
heads.
you know what I'm saying? Great A1, you know what I'm saying?
Ready to let loose.
Represent, man, YCF. Man, YCF, man, y'all CRANKTOWN, man, y'all know what it is, man, you know what I'm saying?
CRANKTOWN, also known as the Young Crank family and Certified Rangers, known killers, are a group of black stones located on 62nd and Kimbark. They're real tight with 62nd and Stony or Stony Spot and No Law or 62nd and Evans. Their main beef was with DRO City, and when the war first kicked off, the whole DRO City was united in honor of Sajo. August 24th, 2006 is when things would really get bad between what was known as Murder Town at the time and CRANKTOWN. DRO, or Sajo, or Samuel Spicer, would end up being killed on 62nd and Greenwood, which was Matt Creek's territory. DRO would end up being shot walking out of some apartments with a female. He would die sometime later. This would unite the whole DRO City, and they would start the Die 5 movement, specifically for CRANKTOWN.
It's DRO City, Maintown, 60 Brother Suicide, CMB Ave. Ain't no difference, it's all together. It's Die 5.
Right, look, right. I just heard some shit about that Die 5 shit. Hey, that's what DRO City started from, right?
Yeah.
Die 5,
Die 5 movement, man. We
that's
brought
what
that
happened,
shit
man.
back alive, man.
Die 5, man. All that
Oh, my fault. Hey, we on Murder Town, you know what I'm saying? Murder Town,
This Murder Town, Ghost Town.
Ghost Town over there where we was at the
DRO
beginning,
City
you feel me?
started from R.I.P. DRO. That's
DRO.
what started the movement.
Hey,
That
man.
brought all
That's
us
the first spot
together.
we took y'all to, man. That's the first spot we took
That's
y'all
what we got in
to.
that alley right there back there. That's Young Money. 5-1. TYB, you want to call it now. 65th and Merle.
Okay.
We is DRO
Murder
City.
America.
DRO
We
City,
is
man.
DRO City.
This space you talking to right now,
Killed my homie with his baby, you
You
know
know
what
what
I
I'm
mean?
talking about?
Killed my homie with his baby, man. All over some miscellaneous shit, man. He ain't had shit to do.
The death of Sajo would really shake the east side up, as everybody would start picking and choosing sides. DRO City had become Die 5, so that meant Rock Creek, BNC, D Block, YMB, and Row Life was all one. About 200 or 300 people against CRANKTOWN. They stood about 25 deep. The east side was really on the verge of eruption, but only time would tell how bad the war would get. Shortly after the death of Sajo, a member from CRANKTOWN named Tiger would end up being killed. This would make CRANKTOWN especially mad because Tiger wasn't really in the streets like that. Tiger was the guy that was in the hood back in the day selling the CDs and DVDs. He really wasn't involved in any street politics. When CRANKTOWN lost Tiger, it really took it to a whole nother level, because they realized Tiger was damn near a citizen and DRO City wasn't playing fair. After the death of Tiger, CRANKTOWN would decide that anybody out of DRO City was pretty much fair game, and that anybody they caught from DRO City would be added to the list. In the following summer, on June 20th, 2007, DRO City would lose another member, a guy that went by the name of Mankey. This would be the second person from DRO City that was lost in the war with CRANKTOWN. A Southside man was fatally shot during a quarrel early Thursday near his home. The slaying occurred about 12:15 in the 6400 block of South Cottage Grove Avenue. Carl Jones, 21, of the 6400 block of South Greenwood Avenue, was quarreling with another man in the street when the man pulled out a gun and shot Jones several times. Jones was pronounced dead about 12:50 a.m. in Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Witnesses told police the gunman fled in an older Dodge Caravan with only one working headlight. A description of the gunman was not available. 2 weeks later, a man from DRO City that went by the name of CMB would end up paralyzed. A man paralyzed after he was shot last summer has died. Christopher Knight, 22, of the 2500 block of West Montrose Avenue, died about 10:55 p.m. Friday, at the Thoric Hospital. He was shot July 5th. Police officer Joanne Taylor said Knight was sitting in a parked car about 2 a.m. in the 6600 block of South Ingleside Avenue when someone approached the vehicle and fired. No arrests have been made, and the case remains under investigation. With the death of CMB, that will make 4 people dead in the war between CRANKTOWN and DRO City. 3 of those being from DRO City and 1 of those being from CRANKTOWN. The east side was quickly spiraling out of control. DRO City was so big, they really were kind of at a disadvantage because they had a lot of people. A lot of times certain things would happen and people wouldn't be aware of what was going on. So a lot of guys would get caught out there. They would become sitting ducks. Blood was beginning to stain the streets of the east side of Chicago as the war between CRANKTOWN and DRO City would continue. There would be a lot of back and forth shootings and a lot of shorties attending funerals of their family members and friends. Blood had been spilled. The only thing that could stop this war is everybody being dead or in jail. That was a CRANKTOWN member by the name of Dakari, or Fudd, who would later change his name to Mubu Mac after he would go over to DRO City. He would end up getting into it with CRANKTOWN because of a personal beef that he had that CRANKTOWN didn't feel obligated to help him with. He would go over to DRO City and begin giving DRO City valuable information about the whereabouts of members from CRANKTOWN. This information would end up getting his own brother shot, as his brother would still live in CRANKTOWN while all of this was going on. Dakari would end up being killed in a separate incident about 1.5 years ago. This war had become deep, and where gang ties became more important than family ties. On December 3rd, 2008, CRANKTOWN would take a loss. But not only would they take a loss, they would lose the heart and soul of the hood. Someone who everybody looked up to. Someone who made you smile when you were sad. Someone who everybody loved. Serge.
A Chicago teenager, Sergio Dukes, was shot and killed on the way home from a high school basketball game. His family says that Sergio was about to start his first job since graduating earlier this year.
Incredible! Teen shot to death after leaving ball game. Sergio Dukes' family says that the teen was about to start his first job since graduating earlier this year. Chicago police are still searching for the person who shot Dukes.
Serge, what up? This is my nigga Serge. Serge, what up, B? Where you at, B?
The killing took place around 7:30 p.m. in the 9600 block of South Indiana. The 18-year-old is a recent graduate of the Chicago Public Schools District. He just finished up this past June. He comes from a huge family, one of 7 siblings. They live on the south side. Unfortunately for that family, his killer has not been found.
Look what we run into while we out here in the town, man. Run things. That's the business. Who you talking to? Oh, she don't even want to go to the bank.
18-year-old Sergio Dukes made his family proud when he graduated early from the Community Youth Development Institute, a CPS charter school on the south side. Wednesday night, Dukes attended the basketball game between Harlan High School and Hyde Park. Dukes used to go to Hyde Park and had a friend playing in the game. Around 7:30, he and some friends left the game a little early, about a block east of Harlan High. He was helping his friend and her baby get into a car.
Sergio was real helpful. He was like the house nurse, and whenever anybody in the house gets sick, we get off, we count on him to take care of us.
And someone started shooting at him. The teen was hit twice in the head and once in the chest. He was pronounced dead just before 8 p.m. Duke's mother, Jacqueline, showed off the diploma her son had earned this past June. She says he was a great basketball and football player who also loved to cook. Police are trying to determine if Dukes was the intended target. His mother says her son had no enemies.
Motherfucker. Don't you supposed to be fat, nigga?
Even though she is devastated by the loss of her son, she says she doesn't wish harm to her son's killer. I don't want anything to happen to the person because it needs to stop. I just think they need to put the guns down, said Jacqueline Dukes. What had just happened with Serge was unbelievable. Serge was a survivor. This was actually Serge's third time being shot. He once shot himself when he was younger. He was also shot in the leg by YMB, and then there's this last time that actually killed him. The whole CRANKTOWN was devastated, and they were angry, and they vowed to stop at nothing to get revenge for Serge. Miss Dukes expressed the fact that she wanted everything to stop, and that she forgave the shooters of her son. The other side was happy that they had finally retaliated, and this time, instead of getting someone who was irrelevant, they got a very big target. The only problem is that Sergio had a twin brother.
Pull up on the block with a car full of nickels. Ain't talking about no change, I'm talking about them pistols. That Nina, when she kiss you, she sizzle and sever tissue. That 50 ain't gon' miss you, the bullets look like some missiles. I call that bitch the whistle, cause when it blow it's official. Magazines on deck for niggas that want an issue.
CRANKTOWN will get right to work. In less than 24 hours after the death of Sergio, a guy from Rock Creek that went by the name of Wink would be killed. CRANKTOWN was thirsty for blood, and this was just the beginning. As Giorgio looked over into his brother's casket, gun in hand, he had decided that he didn't just want one, or he didn't just want two. He wanted as many of his ops as he can catch. Looking into his brother's casket made him realize that anybody can go at any time. And seeing his mother shed tears and feeling the way that he felt, he knew that he was going to try to hurt the ops. On January 9th, 2009, George would decide that it was as good a time as any to go and make his ops pay for what they did to his brother. He knew that it was a basketball game at Harlan High School and that there was a good chance that he could probably catch some of his ops. He would ride up to Harlan High School and shake the block up. The defendant was charged with 5 counts, each of attempted murder, aggravated battery with a firearm, aggravated battery based on great bodily harm, aggravated battery based on permanent disfigurement, aggravated battery based on permanent disability, and aggravated battery based on committing a battery on a public way. The charges stem from a shooting which occurred on January 9th, 2009 in Chicago. At defendant's bench trial, the testimony of John Sharp, Jerome Sharp, Dominique Sharp, Derek Baylard, and Timothy Jackson established that the defendant had fired a gun into a group of people who were standing outside the Harlan High School following a basketball game. 5 people were struck by bullets. The state presented evidence through the testimony of Detective David Carvezos and Deion Sanderson that the defendant committed the shootings to avenge the December 3rd, 2008 shooting death of his twin brother, Sergio. The trial court found defendant guilty of 5 counts of aggravated battery with a firearm, in part upon the testimony of the 5 eyewitnesses, which the trial court found compelling and credible. Defendant was acquitted of all the attempted murder counts and the aggravated battery charges alleging permanent disability. Defendant was sentenced to 9 years imprisonment on December 16th, 2009. George would end up having to go to prison and doing his time. He would get out on his grown man, back on his business, and making money. 2009 would prove to be a difficult year for CRANKTOWN. 3 months after George would do what he did, Mike Minnie would end up being charged for a murder. On April 3rd, 2009, another member of CRANKTOWN would be killed, a guy that went by the name of Tommy. April 3rd, 2009, Tommy Williams, 18, was gunned down Thursday night while walking with a group of friends on the city's south side. Williams is the 31st Chicago Public School student and the 4th Chicago Vocational Career Academy student to be killed by gun violence this academic year. Witnesses say it was as he walked with a group of friends that shots rang out. I ran out and I saw him bleeding in the back, and I just held his hand and was talking to him. He looked like he was doing a little bit better. He was breathing, just looking at me. I don't know what happened, the victim's brother, Thomas Williams, said. Mike Minnie, who was a well-known member from CRANKTOWN, would end up catching a big case a couple months later. Allegedly, Mike Minnie went on a hit, and someone that he knew for 11 years ended up telling on him. On the night of April 20th, 2009, Renault Darling was shot and killed as he returned to his house at 63rd and Ellis in Chicago. Darling was accompanied by several other people at the time he was shot, two of whom, Sherelle Bailey and Theodis Cook Mims, were also injured in the shooting. Shortly after the incident, Chicago police were informed that the shots were fired from a blue Dodge Charger. Officers in the area of the shooting saw a blue Dodge Charger, followed it, ran its plates, and pulled it over. At the time, Angelo Strait was the driver of that vehicle. Kerry Williams was the front seat passenger, and the defendant was the rear seat passenger when the three occupants were removed from the car. Officers noticed and recovered 1 shell casing from inside the car and 4 shell casings from outside the car belonging to 40 and 45 caliber guns. Defendant Williams and Strait were charged with multiple counts of first-degree murder, attempt murder, and aggravated battery with a firearm. In May 2010, Strait pled guilty to conspiracy to commit murder in exchange for a 15-year day-for-day sentence and his truthful testimony. Mike Minnie, or Michael Minifield, along with Kerry Williams, were both convicted and given 54 years, 48 years for the body, and 6 years for discharging the weapons. Mike Minnie would end up being told on by one of his day one friends, all for a shorter sentence. CRANKTOWN would take another big loss. On July 5th of that same year, CRANKTOWN will suffer 2 more losses. 2 members from CRANKTOWN, Phil and Lowe, would end up being killed. Joe City Obama will be charged with these murders, but he would end up going to court and beating the case. A Cook County judge denied bail Saturday for 2 men charged in a 2009 drive-by shooting that killed 2 other men on Chicago's South Side. Baron C. Brown, 23, and Jamie Mondin, 27, were allegedly riding around looking for rival gang members to shoot at about 1:40 a.m. on July 5th, 2009, when they spotted a white Lexus in the 1200 block of East 63rd Street, according to court documents. Thinking that people from another gang were inside, Brown allegedly fired several shots into the vehicle. The shooting killed both Leandra P. Strait, 22, of North Liberty, Iowa, and Loden L. Harmon, 26, of the 9100 block of South Parnell Avenue in Chicago. Brown, of the 6500 block of South Drexel Avenue in Chicago, was arrested near Atlanta on September 1st, according to court documents. Mondin was arrested Thursday near his home in Chicago's South Shore neighborhood. A third person who was in the Lexus and survived the shooting allegedly identified Brown as the shooter, according to court documents. Both Brown and Mondin are charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. 2 more members from the Crank will also end up being locked up and taken off the streets. A.D. and Rashid. CRANKTOWN had a lot of members that were either locked up or dead, and so did DRO City. And this is what will kind of slow the war down. Also, DRO City will begin to fight internally. These circumstances would allow the war between CRANKTOWN and DRO City to cool down, and they would go years without any incident. But in 2016, a DRO City member will begin shooting at some CRANKTOWN members on 61st and Kimbard. In the process, he will paralyze a 3-year-old. Looking back, those days were 10 plus years ago, and the members from CRANKTOWN are on a whole different level in life now. They're older, most of them in their 30s, seeking different things in life, trying to get money, trying to live life instead of take life. But at that time, it was a war outside, and they had to do what they had to do. These stories are history and an example of what to do and what not to do in the streets of Chicago. This has been the story of CRANKTOWN, the Squad Edition. It's your boy, SNTV.